But today, what we want to do is take an opportunity to really engage our community and engage you in a conversation that we think is really important and valuable at our church. A couple of things that we value here at Nona that are really important. We value honesty, we value transparency, and we value this fact that our church isn't built on the talent of the few, but on the contributions of many. That all of you are investing, all of you are engaged, and all of you are making a difference in creating an environment where people can know and take their next best step in following Jesus. And so on occasion, on Sundays, what we actually do is we take a moment to look back at what God has done over a certain season and look forward to what we sense that he's calling us to do in this season. And so today's message is titled, Don't Waste Your Summer, because we're going to be looking at the next season that we're entering into. Seasons are very interesting. Seasons are things that come and go. Seasons are in our life, oftentimes things we don't even realize are happening to us until we step out of that season into another one and realize, oh wow, life is really different now than it was back then. You know, I think about the fact that 2.5 years ago, Stacy and I stepped into a new season when we took the responsibility of leading here at Nona Church. And if you were to tell me that over the course of 2.5 years, we would, our family would grow, our lives would change the way that they've changed, that our church would quintuple in size in just 2.5 years, I don't think I would have been prepared for that had somebody had told me that would be what we were stepping into. But it's amazing in life, right? And you know this to be true. It's amazing in life how the days seem to be long, but the older you get, the years seem to get shorter. Is anybody noticing that? And maybe I feel that in a very real way because I'm getting old and it's my birthday this month. I don't know if that's what it is, but there used to be a time when I was excited about birthdays, and now I want to pretend like they don't exist, you know? And I'm just trying to work that out. And some of you guys are like, I have a birthday month, and I'm like, somebody should have parented you different. I don't know how you guys do that. But when we talk about seasons as a church, we also got to think about seasons in our own life. And so what I want to do today is just talk for a couple of minutes about seasons. And hopefully this will serve as an insight that will help you understand what's going on in your own life as you interpret what God is doing in your particular experience. And then I want to take that and really allow our church to serve as a backdrop and as a metaphor that really gives you an insight into how we think about life and how we think about church here at Nona. So if you're new to Nona, or maybe you've been coming since Easter, or maybe you've been coming for a short period of time, today is a great day, especially if it's your first time, because you're going to get to basically sit in on a family meeting and get to see all of our dysfunction at once. And if you're like, this is not for me, you only wasted 1 hour of your time. But if you lean in and you think, oh my gosh, these people are kind of like me, or I kind of like where this is going, this will give you a lot of information quickly about where we are as a community of faith. And if this is your first time, we want to say thank you so much for trusting us with your time. We know that coming to church on a Sunday can be a courageous act for many of us, and we're just so grateful that you're here with us. So there's a man by the name of King Solomon who history recounts as one of the richest and wealthiest men to have ever lived. And he was also one of the wisest men that had ever lived. He wrote some incredible poetry like the Song of Songs. He also wrote some really, really great wisdom literature, the book of Proverbs, which is filled with these really great one-liners. Proverbs is like Twitter before Twitter existed, these little 140 character brilliant pieces. And then as you kind of track through Solomon's life, while he started off a wealthy man and a rich man and a man who was really experiencing God's favor, he made a series of choices that ruined his life the older he got. And later on in life, as he's reflecting back on the mistakes that he's made and the things that he's lost and the brokenness of his family, he sits down and writes one of the most depressing books in all of the Old Testament, and perhaps one of the most depressing books of all of human history, the book of Ecclesiastes. And here's basically what he says in the book of Ecclesiastes. It's all vanity. We're all going to die. This was worthless, and there was no point. All right, it was like the ancient 1990s, like Nirvana song, or the early 2000s, like emo moment. All right, like I could imagine King Solomon dressed in all black with black fingernails, listening to really, really sad songs. And for those of you who are younger today, it's like sitting in your room, turning down the lights, and listening to Billie Eilish and just crying over your ice cream. All right, that's what the book of Ecclesiastes is like. And in that book, he gives us some incredible wisdom. And today we're going to look at one principle that I think is a game changer and really serves as a guideline and guidepost for us, a compass for us, if you will, as we think about how we lead our individual lives and how we lead our church. He says this in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1. He says, there is a time for everything. Would you say the word everything on the count of three? 1, 2, 3. everything. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. In the next couple of verses, we don't have time to read them today, but if you read chapter 3, verses 1 through 11, you'll find that Solomon uses 14 different merisms. A merism is a figure of speech that takes two opposing words to communicate the idea of completion or wholeness. He lists out 14 different opposites to make this point that there's nothing under the sun, there's nothing in all of creation that God is not in control of and does not operate in the premise and in the rhythm of seasons. A merism would be something like this: for better or for worse. It means no matter what, right? We're going to stay married. That's what that means. A night and day. We were up night and day. Well, maybe you weren't up all 24 hours, but it felt like it was the whole thing, right? That's the idea of a merism. Or we were up, or we stayed, we waited for you, and we'll be there for you, rain or shine. That doesn't mean that if it's foggy outside and 70 degrees, you're not going to be there, right? It means no matter what, you're going to be there. That's what Solomon does in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1 through 11. He makes this argument that there's nothing in all of creation that does not operate in seasons, and God chooses and uses seasons to prepare us for what is next. I don't have time to go through all of them, but there are a couple of them that are my favorites. Ecclesiastes 3:2 says this: that there's a time to be born and a time to die, meaning that all of your life, God has appointed seasons and a reason for that season. A time to plant and a time to uproot, meaning there are times when we have to stay in something, and there are times when God transitions us and moves us on. And for some of you, you've experienced that even in your own church life, the process of being in one place and then being moved along. God says that there are seasons that are part of that reality. And this is my personal favorite, Ecclesiastes 3:4, a time to search and a time to give up. If you know anything about me, I lose my keys all of the time. So I just quote this verse to my wife when I say I can't find them, and I say, can you just go get me another copy? The other one that I like right now that's really, really important for me in my current moment is this one: a time to keep and a time to throw away. I'm a firm believer right now, if it does not spark joy in your life, throw it away. And I love the fact that it's just not like some cute idea that came on Netflix or a minimalist podcast, but God's been saying it forever and ever and ever. Just want you to know this: if you are a hoarder, you need Jesus, all right? Throw it away. Throw it away. So here's the principle that we learn when we look at these merisms, okay? That God chooses to work everything out, not some things, not a few things, but he chooses to work everything out in and through seasons. And the reality is this, is that we're more likely to make the most of our season when we understand the reason for it. And when we understand, hey, you know what, I didn't get that opportunity that I wanted, or I'm not in the life stage that I want to be in, or the promotion didn't come the way that I was going to come, or I just received this diagnosis that I don't like, or my kids are in this really weird situation where they don't obey me, welcome to parenting. If that's like the season that you're in, it's appointed by God actually for your good. That God's no is the best thing that could happen to you because it's orienting you towards God's yes. That oftentimes God's no is his protection of us from the thing that we thought we would want the most. And that God keeps us in certain seasons because he's preparing us to have the tools that we need to step into the new season that he's going to call us to. And when we think about seasons, I want you to realize that's true about your life, but it's also true about our life as a church. That as a church, we live in a rhythm of seasons. And my kids have just gotten into to gardening, and by my kids, I mean my daughters. My sons, their version of gardening is spraying water on each other and then ripping up everything that my daughters have created. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. My daughter Elise turned 7 last Sunday. It was also Mother's Day. And Mama likes to garden, and Elise loves to garden. And so I sat down with Elise, and I said, honey, you can have whatever you want for your birthday. And when those words came out of my mouth, I thought that was the worst decision I could have ever made, because you can't have whatever you want, but I just said that you could. I hope that you shoot low here. And all she said was, I want to have a picnic at home. I want to eat spaghetti, which is like the cheapest meal in the world. And I want to go to Home Depot and I want to get some stuff so we can garden and plant flowers. And I was just like, can you be the cheapest child for the rest of your life? I will give you whatever you want as long as it is under $9.99. Like, this is a good situation. So we went and we planted a bunch of stuff at our home. And it's really interesting as you watch kind of our home and the area around it, the jungle. I mean, we've got wild grapes. We have blackberries. We have a cherry tree. We have apples. Did you know you could grow apples in Florida? I don't know how it's working, but it's working. We've got tomatoes right now. We've got kale that we plant that turns into weeds because kale tastes terrible, and so we don't do that. And we've also got this Frankenstein tree, which is really cool, where it produces tangelos, lemons, limes, oranges, and tangerines, depending on the time of year. I'm not sure what kind of sorcery it is, but I'm okay with it. Now, here's the thing, okay? If we try to plant at our home certain things at certain times when it's not ready, it's not going to produce fruit. There's something about planting the right things at the right moment in the right season that produces fruit later. You can't just plant stuff whenever you want to. There's got to be the appointed season. And when we think about Nona Church, we believe that God gives us the opportunity to live in a rhythm of seasons. In fact, if you don't live in a rhythm of seasons and you continually try to plant and over-till soil, eventually soil that used to produce good fruit will no longer produce fruit because it's overused and it's been abused. And the readers of Ecclesiastes 3, they understood this. They knew as ancient farmers and in this context that if you were going to plant something in a certain season, you had to let the space rest for another season in order to make sure that you'd have consistency and sustainability. And when we think about our church, we think about our church in the life pattern of seasons. So the fall for us is all about planting. That's the time when we till the soil and we plant seed. I teach on certain content and pieces of information that I don't expect to take root in your life until the months pass, but we're going to talk about really important foundational stuff. In the fall, we launch spiritual formation groups where people go through a pretty involved and invested process to find community. And we don't expect people to be best friends in 2 weeks, but we think that there's a harvest that's going to come, and the fall is all about planting, and we're intentional about that rhythm. And then we hit the winter, and it's all about cultivation. The little roots have begun to shoot up, and there's little buds that begin to show, and we want to tend to the tenderness of that moment. And so we see that season as development. And so we put things on like Nona One Leadership Conference, where last year 198 of you gathered who are volunteers and serving in our church, and we invested in you and we developed you. It's when we take a moment to look at our church as a whole and think, how can we invest and be developers in the community? And you gave $40,000 away during the cultivation season through Be Rich, where every single dollar that was raised through Be Rich was poured right back into our community to support local nonprofits and organizations. And it's about cultivating relationship in the community. And then we really see spring as a season of harvest. Harvest is when we see abundance and fruit. And for us, that's when we added an additional service. We've added one service every 6 months for the last 2 years, and we went to 4 services, and we hosted over 1,200 people here on Easter. And I joke that Easter is the day when everybody who calls Nona Church home just shows up on the same Sunday, because the average person attends, or the average church attendance day is about 60% of your total church. And we just see everybody at the same time, and we get to celebrate that. And 1,200 of you celebrated the resurrected Jesus with us. And as we walk through these seasons, if we're not careful, we might plant again too fast, or we might over-cultivate the land, and as a result of that, what creates this beautiful, sustainable, healthy, growing thing could eventually be worn down, and land that was once fertile soil can become rugged rock. And so we are intentional about entering into the last season of the year, the season of rest, where we acknowledge and we celebrate all that God has done. We thank him for what he's done. We enjoy the fruit of what God has done, and we allow ourselves to take a deep breath and to prepare our hearts for the new season of planting that will come in the fall. And so part of my job as a pastor is really one of two things. I got 2 things that I'm supposed to do. My job's to lead you, and my job is to feed you. And on most Sundays, what I do is I'm feeding you. I'm teaching you from God's word. We're learning practical ways that we can figure out how to know and take our next best step in following Jesus, and hopefully giving ourselves a bigger vision of how good God is and how kind his love is. But the other side of my job and responsibility is also to lead you, to help prepare us for the next season that we're entering into, and also look back at what God has done and celebrate all of the incredible things he's done. One of the biggest mistakes we can make in our life when we make a transition from one season to the next is to not practice gratitude. And we want to be a church that always lives out of the overflow of gratitude, being thankful for what God has done and resting in the goodness of the next season that he's prepared us for. And so today is a day where it's really about leadership. Today I want to lead our church into the next season that we enter into this summer as we step into a season of rest. And so in order to do that, we're going to look back and celebrate. And I pray that as we do that this place would go nuts because there's a lot to celebrate. This would be like your football team scored a touchdown. Like, let's make it a big deal. It's a really, really big deal what God has done in the last 4 months. And then we'll look forward together about what God has for us in the season of rest as a church. And so with that in mind, one of my best friends, the president of our board, and a person who serves in so many significant ways, really serves as an anchor at our church, is going to help celebrate those things with us. So would you put your hands together for Eric Butts?
Thanks, Collin.
What's up, man?
Thanks for saying my name right.
Yeah, no
Appreciate
problem,
that.
no problem. It only took me like 4 years. So as we look back today, we're going to kind of divide our time up by doing those two things. I want to remind you of something that we said in our cultivation season in November of 2018. I preached a message called For Nona. It was on For Nona Sunday. And this is what I told us and kind of spoke to our church. What our leadership was sensing was true. That we're entering a season where we will build the capacity and plant the roots that will allow us to be a generational, multiplying church for the renewal of our city and the world. And if you'll even notice right there, we talk about seasons all of the time, that this is what God has called our church into in the moment that we're called to steward. And what we talked about at that time is that there are 4 things that we really sense that God was calling us to do in the immediate future to make an impact in our community and to be good stewards of what God has given us. And those 4 things in November were this: that we wanted to update our North Lake Park location where you're sitting right now. We wanted to establish a residency and an internship because we want to create an environment where we're building out homegrown leaders and really producing world-class leaders, not only for our church, but for churches and for the community at large. We want to develop the Narcoossee property. God's gifted us with this beautiful 5.5-acre parcel of land right there on Narcoossee Road, and we want to be good stewards of that. And that we wanted to strengthen our leadership teams to build the infrastructure that would be necessary to help accommodate and really manage and lead the growth and the blessing that God's given us as a church. And so today, we want to give you an update on those 4 areas, recognizing that none of those are fully completed, but all of them are in process, and we are dogmatic in some ways, super passionate and vigilant about being a church that operates with transparency and openness, good, bad, and ugly, so that way we can all be on this journey together. So we're going to talk about those things today, and Eric, you're going to kick us off.
Yeah, hopefully you've noticed some of the investments that we've made in our North Lake Park experience and environment here. One of them is in our kids' spaces. As we grow, we have hundreds of kids that come in that are part of Nona Kids, and we've invested to make those spaces great. We want the kids to love Sunday morning and to be dragging you back here because they love it so much, to be fun and to be safe as well. And that's another thing that we've invested in is more security and safety. We've got the guys that wear the blue shirts that are around that are just keeping an eye out to make sure that we can have an undistracted and safe experience on Sunday mornings together. And we've also added some signage. Hopefully you've seen those. And if you ever have a chance when they break them down, some of those huge signs, they like collapse down into like a cube like this big. It's really amazing. So check that out. But they're very cool signs, and they're meant to help people outside and inside know that we're here and where to go, where to find the bathrooms. And then we've redesigned this space especially. We continue. Did you notice that we're in a gymnasium? Like sometimes I forget that, right? Because all of this stuff gets set up and torn down every week, and we want to make it a place where we can experience the Lord together. And I think we've done a great job. And let's give a hand to our setup team. They do a great, amazing job. Yeah, don't forget that. Every week, everything you see here gets packed up, and they're like set-up ninjas. They, do this in half an hour at the end. And then the last one, okay, they're laughing because is it really half an hour? Yeah. The last one, don't miss this. We're establishing a parking team, okay? And you might think, what's the big deal? Parking is a spiritual experience.
Amen.
Right? Is it not? I mean, think about the last time you were at the full Walmart or Target or Home Depot parking lot. Like, who prays for parking spaces?
Yeah.
I do, for sure. And so we want the Sunday morning experience, including parking, to not be a distraction. We're going to have a team that's going to help direct and guide people and, have that moment when you find the right spot and you're like, yes, praise the Lord. So we want all those elements to just create a wonderful environment for us to be a community together.
Yeah, and as it pertains to residencies and internships, 4 or 5 months ago when we were talking about this, we had a hope and a dream for what that would look like. And it's amazing how God has exceeded our expectations. And so we're proud to announce and excited to announce that we are offering a residency starting July of 2019 and January of 2020. It's a 2-year residency in partnership with Wheaton Graduate School, where as people go through a process of working alongside of us for 2 years, they graduate with a master's degree in church planting from one of the greatest Christian educational institutions in the country. And God provided that opportunity for us at an incredibly low cost. I mean, way less than we even budgeted. And we're super excited about the fact that we get to attract high talent people who can bring their gifts here, learn, develop their call to ministry, and graduate with a degree from one of the best academic institutions in the country. How cool is that? Can we thank God for that? We're super, super excited. And so as we think about internships, we're excited about those conversations. We're committed to that, and we're looking at how our strategies, and really I think part of it's just how financially we do as the year continues to be able to establish internships, year-long internships, and then summer internships. So hear more about that as we continue on through 2019 and really look to engage that more fully in 2020.
Yeah, we're really committed long-term to raising up world-class leaders for our church and for the body of Christ. Yeah. And so long-term, those kind of programs, I think, are a huge part of what we're trusting the Lord to see happen. We're also continuing to develop the Narcoossee property that Collin mentioned. We're engaged in a process of getting a loan to build the ministry hub location that we've been talking about, and we're going to continue to keep you updated on that, working on development plans and options for that property, and also a strategic plan for what does that look like as we open that property and we continue to see this neighborhood church function and we even open other ones. You know, how's that transition going to work as we expand, and we're praying and trusting the Lord for that.
Yeah, we're really excited about the team that's around that. We've got some really great business minds, some really great commercial real estate minds, and just really great leaders that are helping inform the conversation, who are experts in their field and experts in Lake Nona in their field. And so we're really excited about that. One of the things that we talked about was strengthening our leadership teams, and this is just an incredible thing. And she's in the room, so we're just going to honor her because she's a massive part of it. Ann Albin volunteers for us and really helps lead up our LD, leadership development and HR process. And at the beginning of the year, there were 41 people who said that they wanted to find a place to serve. And Ann helps curate and create great opportunities for people to find their best fit. And the names that you're about to see here are a significant portion of that is because of Ann's leadership in this area. So can we just thank Ann Albin really quick for how awesome she is? So in 4 months, just so things that you need to know, we have hired Ethan Speak. He starts full-time on June 1st, and he will oversee all of our ministry to students and all of our outreach ministry to the local community. He's going to be overseeing community engagement. So whenever you see Ethan and whenever you see his wife, Emily, make sure that you encourage them. We're excited about them joining our team full-time in just 2 weeks. Scott Harmon is our gatherings manager, and he's on staff with us, and he helps oversee all of the setup and teardown teams that we have for all 4 of our services that meet in 2 locations that now host close to 700 people on a weekend. He's on our staff. We're excited to add Logan Fry. It's her birthday today, by the way. Happy birthday, Logan. Logan's background is in, her educational background is in events, in special projects, and she's going to be working on all of our large events that we do and help leading those teams. It's just been an incredible addition to our staff. Lindsay Fleming is joining our team as our director of family ministry, and she's going to be connecting what kids experience on Sunday morning with content that you can have as parents Monday through Friday, so you can engage in really great life-giving conversations with your kids. She's going to oversee our classes and our ministry to parents, and we're really excited about having her on the team. And then 2 people that have been on our team that are making transitions to fit more into their passion and also some significant needs that we have. Stephanie, who's been overseeing Nona Kids and done a great job for that over the last year and a half, is moving into a First Steps coordinator position where she's going to be coordinating all of the guest experience and all of the kids ministry spaces and helping engage our volunteers. She is so great at loving on volunteers and helping them feel connected, and that's what her role is on our staff, and that's going to be happening this summer. And last but not least, Cheryl Knox, who is like our hero. Cheryl Knox, who is a founding member of this church, pioneered this thing when there were 70 people and no one in the lobby. Cheryl Knox is the one who led this way, is really passionate about making sure every single person in our church, as we grow, doesn't get lost in translation and doesn't become a person who's disconnected. And so her job and what she's passionate about is making sure every person in our church gets connected and is accounted for. And we're super excited in 4 months that God's answered all of these prayers and provided for all of these shifts. So can we thank God for that? We're super, super excited. Yeah.
No, another way that we're strengthening our leadership team, so our executive elders that form the board of our organization, we take that very seriously, the stewardship and the direction and the accountability for the church. And we're adding in some expertise in developing an advisory team of people in finance, HR, legal, real estate, advancement, which means fund development. And so we're tapping into some of the great expertise of those of you that do this professionally out there to help us have, all of God's wisdom and discernment and expertise that we can to lead the church well.
Yeah.
So those are a few different areas. We want to wrap up just looking back at just the last 4 months of some of the specific ways that God has helped grow the church. So just in the last 4 months, 214 new adults have come through our doors to experience one of our environments here.
Yeah, and by come through our doors, you mean they filled out a Connect card. So we know that number is way higher because some of y'all have been here for 2 years and still have not filled out a Connect card, all right?
Yeah, right.
And so it's a number that we're really excited about, and the space that we've created with an additional service has really accommodated that growth, and our attendance has grown an incredible amount just by adding that additional service.
So it's at least 214, and those people have brought 148 plus kids along with them, dragged them along to church into our Nona Kids environments. And to support all that, this one's amazing. We have 79 new volunteers that are helping to make all this possible.
Yeah, it's incredible. And over that time, 51 new financial partners have joined along in the story as well. And we're so grateful for your generosity. Because of those people that have said yes to investing in the ministry here, you need to know that through the first 4 months of the year, usually a church stands up and says, hey, we really need your help. Like, we're in a tough situation. Through the first 4 months of the year, our church's giving has been exceeded 11% of what we budgeted for this moment. Now, we've had to use a decent amount of those resources because we continue to grow, but you just need to know this. 4 months into 2019, Nona Church, you, because of your generosity, are ahead of budget. Can we thank God for that? We think that is really, really cool. Yeah.
And so overall, we've seen about a 41% increase in our attendance, which is, rapid church growth is like 10 or 15%. So God is really bringing people into this community. But the thing we're most excited about as we talk about our purpose is to help people know Jesus and take their next best step in following him. This last one is a great one to celebrate. Just on Easter Sunday, 135 different people took a next step, whether that was a first-time decision to become a follower of Jesus, signing up to go through Discover Nona, or for a community group, or wanting to be baptized. And so we're just very excited that God's at work, even as we talk about the broad things, but God's at work in the lives of individuals, and 135 different people that God's working a story in their life and helping them take steps. So we're really grateful for that. And many of those people are you who are sitting here. So we're excited to see how God's at work in your life.
Yeah, we are convinced our church is not built on the talent of a few people, but on the contributions of every single one of you. And you are a part of creating this incredible space. And so can we thank God for what he has done over the last 4 months? We just think it's super awesome. And would you pray for us, Eric?
One more thing.
Okay.
Last thing, as we think about God bringing in all this fruitfulness, and we're talking about summer and looking towards the fall, we want to make sure we continue to have the capacity to receive all the blessing that God might want to bring. And this all is made possible through the generous giving of many of you. And so I just want to throw this out there. It's in your bulletin, a small little piece of paper. If you're a family member here, if you consider this your home, if you're not already giving online through some form of monthly or regular giving, I want to encourage you to consider that and pray and ask if that's a step you would take, just to kind of lock in your commitment to generosity and commitment to how God is working in and through you and the church. So again, if you're a family member here, consider that and help us have the capacity and be prepared for all the fruitfulness that God wants to bring to us as we head into the summer and into the fall as well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
With that,
would you pray for us?
Let me pray for us.
Thanks, man.
Lord, it's good to celebrate and to look back and to see what you're doing. We know you're always at work, and sometimes we forget in the midst of our lives and the busyness to look back, celebrate, see the ways that you're so good and so faithful. And so we want to trust you. We look at these different ways you've caused growth here, and yet we know that it's through the individual touch you have on people's lives that's so powerful. And so would you continue to do that? Show up among us. Help us to be ones who are blessed in order to bless others, Lord. We just commit all these things to you and give this praise to you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen, amen, amen. Hey, I'm going to do this with Eric real quick just because when I get an opportunity, I want to. You don't know how much Eric works behind the scenes. He's an executive vice president of a large organization. He's out of the country a significant amount of the time, and he's investing tens of hours on a monthly basis to help provide infrastructure and leadership to this place. His wife, Gina, sacrifices so much to make that happen. And so we are really blessed with some incredible leaders. So I'm going to ask you to honor Eric. Would you put your hands together and honor him? And when you see him, make sure you say thank you. We're really blessed. We're really blessed. Well, I hope that you're encouraged as we look back at what God has done in our season of cultivation and harvest. It is really cool to be a part of that story and that journey. And as we look ahead right now, I want to help all of us kind of know and take our next best step. And here's how I want you to look ahead, all right? Here's my heart for you. Here's my hope, okay? I don't want you to waste your summer, all right? Do not waste your summer. Don't allow these next few months to be a wasted season in your personal life and in the life of our church. And so here's how we think about summer here at Nona, and here's how we think you would waste your summer, okay? Summer is wasted if we don't slow down to rest, all right? If you are a person who is being overworked right now, overtaxed and overstressed, I want you to think about and process this comment by Pete Scazzero in a book he writes called Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, which has changed my life personally and is basically changed the way that we even do church here at Nona. This is what he says: the essence of being in God's image is our ability, like God, to look at that word, to stop. We imitate God by stopping our work and resting. God gives for us a model where he creates and he rests. God himself chooses that pattern. And we are actually walking in the way of Jesus when we look at our life, we look at our schedule, and we say, I'm going to take a moment to pause and be intentional about resting so that I can be restored, about resting so that I can be renewed, about resting so that my physical body can be rejuvenated for the next season that God has for me. And we really do believe that summer is a really great time to ask this rest question. What are we going to do to slow down, or what are we going to stop doing for a season so we can rest well this summer? So I want you to hear me. I'm trying to give you some permission right now and to really challenge your thinking in this space to ask yourself this question: what are we doing as a family? What am I doing as an individual? How are we interacting with one another to say, hey, we're going to rest? Our family, this isn't just cheap words for us. Our family is intentional about that, and we take the summer to rest and to disconnect and to get some breath because we know that there's a planting season that's coming. You need to rest. Make sure you're asking that question over lunch and with the people that you love. What are we going to intentionally do to rest in this season? And the second one is this: summer is wasted if we don't prioritize our relationships. What I love about Scazzero is he says this, that our relationship with God and relationship with others are two sides of the same coin. That when we go out and spend time having a drink or a meal with somebody that we love who's walking with Jesus, we're actually experiencing God in that moment. When we go out on the boat, when we go out with a group of friends and we have a good time and we're building relationships, that's actually a spiritual experience. When we go to a community barbecue, that is a spiritual experience, especially if Patrick Hanley is cooking a tomahawk ribeye. It will make you love Jesus, all right? I'm telling you. That's the way that it works. And so here's the relationship question, all right? Where are we going to get involved, and what are we going to do to build strong relationships at Nona? What I love about the summer is as people travel and things thin out a little bit here, we continue to grow through the summer because new people who are moving into town come to find a church. But what's so cool about that is it creates some space and some margin for us to get to know the people that we're actually doing life with and going to church with. And so just understand that summer at Nona is about two things. It's about rest and it's about relationship. It's about rest and it's about relationship. And now is the season to build relationships on a summer team and find community in a summer study. So summer at Nona looks like this. This cadence and this rhythm of rest and relationship looks like a couple of things. One, we move to a summer service schedule. We go from 3 services on Sunday morning to 2, and we keep our 5 o'clock service. And so this place is going to be a little bit busier. And remember, if you show up at 10 o'clock next week, you're going to be really, really early for the 10:30 service. But most of you guys show up at 10:30 for the 10 o'clock service anyway, so you're going to be just fine, all right? So just be aware of that shift that starts next weekend. Next weekend will also be summer kickoff. We'll celebrate some baptisms. We'll have some good opportunities to connect and engage. And that's really the first time for us to get to know the people that we're connected with and engage with them. On July 7th, we're doing something really special called Summer Serve Day. We're going to gather here and we're going to check in our kids, especially our little ones. But Ethan, who's full-time on our team, who's focused on community outreach, he's working with local partners in our community. And on Sunday, July 7th, we're actually going to go out into our community instead of being here. And we're going to go serve local nonprofits and organizations in our community. And that's how we're going to do church on Sunday. And so your kids are going to have an opportunity to serve alongside you if you want them to, or you could check them in here. We'll have air-conditioned options for Service Project as well for all of you who are not ready to suffer for Jesus. And then we'll also have some opportunities in groups of 10 to 20 to go out and do some really cool projects in the community where you'll get to work side by side with people and get to know the people that you're working with. And that's just one other way that we're really creating an opportunity for relationship to happen in our church. And then we'll have summer studies. We'll have men's options. On Tuesday morning, our men meet at 6:30 in the morning right now, but we're adding an evening Tuesday option as well over the summer so that those who can't make that early time can come. It's a great time to get engaged. We'll offer women's studies as well and some other community groups that happen that are particularly for the summer. So if you've not been in a community group or if you've been kind of playing relational double dutch trying to figure out when you're going to jump in, summer is a really great opportunity and time to do that. And then we're going to have some community barbecues where we're going to go out into our neighborhoods. We're going to have some food. We'll provide the meat. You bring the sides. And we're just going to have these really low-key opportunities for people that we're neighbors with to come out, have a good time, enjoy a good meal, and get to be connected with the life and the community of our church. There's a lot going on in the life of our church, and your next step today is really simple. I want you to take out your bulletin right now, and I want you to mark the things that you think might be of interest of you. You're not committing to anything today, but as you mark those connect cards and drop them off in the black box in the backs on your way out, that gives our team the ability to plan and prepare correctly for the opportunities that we're creating for you to be able to engage so that summer at Nona can really be about rest and relationship. For everything and for every time, there is a season. And when we embrace the season that God has us in, and we recognize that that season is preparation for the next one, it allows us to live a life of sustainable fruit. And that's what the heart of this church is all about.